Alors, bonsoir tout le monde. Bienvenue à cette réunion ordinaire et publique du Conseil municipal de Dieppe en ce 25 avril. Alors, sans plus tarder, nous allons passer avec notre mot de bienvenue. Chers collègues, ayons la sérénité d'accepter les choses que nous ne pouvons changer, le courage de changer les choses que l'on peut et la sagesse de connaître la différence. Alors, encore une fois, bonsoir à tous. On a une belle foule ce soir pour toutes sortes de belles raisons. On reviendra là-dessus à l'item numéro 7.2. Alors, on va procéder avec maintenant appeler la réunion à l'ordre et confirmation qu'on a un quorum. On n'a seulement qu'un membre du conseil qui est absent à l'extérieur. Alors, on a un quorum. Et ça nous amène aux déclarations de conflit d'intérêts. Est-ce qu'il y a des déclarations de conflit d'intérêts ce soir? Non?
No.
Alors, ça nous permet de continuer.
So we can continue with the adoption of the agenda. Somebody to move the adoption of the agenda? Moved by Councillor Lantek, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. For the question? No question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. The agenda is carried, is adopted as presented. Item 7. So we're going very quickly. I was quicker than that on my skates, but that was a very long time ago. Item number 7.1, inquiries by council members. And we're lucky tonight we have the presence of Inspector Jolette, who's here with us tonight. And he's even accompanied this evening. And I had promised you 2 years ago that I would start bringing people in, especially the new people, so to give a name to a face, show you what type of people we're hiring at the RCMP. Unfortunately, 2 years ago, we had put the brakes on, so now we're going to try to do it. So each meeting, I'll try to bring one of the younger members with me, and I have Garcelet Fortuné. He's been here since December from Regina, from the depot in Regina. People that go to the academy in Regina are there for 6 months, from 19 years old up to 45 years old, even to become police officers. After 6.5 months, we're sent to anywhere in Canada. It's like a game, darts. You send a dart, and that's where you end up. But often bilingual people, because of course, to come to New Brunswick, a recruit must be bilingual. And those that come here, they always come back to New Brunswick. If somebody from Moncton joins the RCMP, can end up maybe not in Moncton, but a Campbellton, Bathurst, or elsewhere. Yerselin is not from New Brunswick, but he's going to tell you where he's from. Good evening, councillors, your worship, public. I'm Gasselin Fortuné, and I'm from Montreal. To begin with, I always wanted to be a policeman since I was about 7 years old. It was my choice. I was in the army at 19 years old until 21 years old. And then I was in psychiatric services and correctional services Canada. And then I went into the RCMP. I want to thank everyone here to welcome me. I was very welcomed by the members, the residents of Moncton, Dieppe, and Riverview. And I want to tell you that I'm going to give 100% of myself to serve the public as best as I can. And thank you to RCMP Kodiak to give me the chance to work here in Moncton. And I had chosen New Brunswick, and I knew that Moncton is well known to get a good experience, and the team is excellent to work with. Thank you for your presentation. And you're surely, if you haven't learned, that the best thing with the Moncton detachment that they're also covering Dieppe. Thank you. Another thing, we have police men and women that are not bilingual. We have English only postings. And when we choose somebody to go into certain zones, we choose francophones to do the beat in Moncton and Dieppe. And when we organize our shifts, if there's a call in Dieppe, it's going to be somebody like Darcelin who will be able to serve the people in the language of their choice, especially French. And we have people from everywhere, but that's what we try to do. With a report, I only have a couple points, unless you have questions. I said at the last meeting, I want to remind everybody that tires with nails are not are prohibited, so you must remove them, and you can hear them driving along the streets as well. And of course, people will bring out their cars that were put away for the last 6 months. Maybe they're modified or more powerful, and they should respect the speed limits and the stop signs. The schools will be finished in another month, so there'll be people everywhere on bicycles and walking, so we have to be careful. I'm going to have to leave soon because we've had serious incidents in Moncton today. It was mostly in Moncton, but like I mentioned in the past, when we have this type of incident, all police officers in Dieppe as well, we have to call them for reinforcements. I had a briefing with Major Crime Unit, and there were 15 police agents there from Fredericton and Bathurst as well. So we call in everybody when there's something severe going on. So we're going to keep working on that. And there'll be reports that'll come out in the media soon. The last thing, I just wanted to underline the work of the team crew to reduce criminality. There are citizens that have the most requests in the community, and they work with drugs too. We had 2 drug seizures last week, and for arms as well, firearms. And so that's what we're trying to remove. We want to responsibilize people as well. So I'm ready to answer any questions you may have. Any questions or comments from councillors? Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Gillette, I just want to say thank you. The last meeting that we had virtually, you mentioned that you were expecting a new team of recruits. And I heard the superintendent said at the last meeting of the CRPA, and I wanted to mention to everyone that we will have a police team on bicycles that will be in our region. And thank you for your efforts for that. Yes, it's a good point too. We have 16 agents in Kodiak who are trained to use bicycles on the beach. People think it's easy, but it's a bit more complicated than we think. There are certain tactics used, and there are people that are in good shape, much more than I am. And we've already repaired all the bicycles at bike shop in Dieppe, and we have 6 already trained, and we're going to train 6 more in the next month. So that's the goal. not only to send them in the downtown, but everywhere. We want them to be visible. So if people see two police agents on bicycles, they're working and they can answer calls like any other agent, police officer. Any more questions? No. Thank you for being here, and welcome. And we hope you have a lot of success with your career. Thank you. At 7.2, certificate award for the National Volunteer Week. I'm very happy to welcome you here for this certificate award during the week of the National Volunteer Week. I want to underline your support to this community in Dieppe. In Dieppe, we're lucky to have you, the volunteers, with such quality, and you're engaged here for a number of years. And it's always a pleasure to see younger faces as well in different organizations to take part in community life here at home in Dieppe. So, for volunteering and empathy in action this week is the opportunity to thank you for your implication in our beautiful community. Congratulations to the 9 winners of this certificate here tonight. And jointly with this award, we'll be honoring the volunteers at the by the Volunteering Center of Southeast on June 7th. And we'll have more details on this celebration later. Without further ado, I would ask Jonathan to come forth and to start the official ceremony.
Monsieur le maire, vous pouvez...
Your worship. Hello, councillors, members of the public. I'm Jonathan Derasta. I'm a community agent for Leisure Division in Dieppe. I'm new here, so it's the first time you see me. I met a few of you on the weekend. Thanks for being there on Earth Day. Yeah, I'm dressed a little differently today. So I'm happy to present this evening the Volunteers of the Year. We'll start with Christiane Levesque, Lamb d'Or Skating Club, Dieppe. She is a mother of 2 children, resides in Dieppe, and she's been working with the club for the last 7 years. She's been devoted during the pandemic, and it helped to save the club. She's very good with youth, communicates efficiently.
Le club de patinage artistique, c'est très spécial parce que
Figure skating is special because a long time ago, in another life, I had 3 daughters that did figure skating in Dieppe. So we're a lot closer to some of these groups in this case. Thank you.
OK. Le deuxième membre, c'est Jonathan Dubé.
Next, Jonathan Dubé, the cadets, Army Cadets 3006 Dieppe. He's a former cadet and he helps with the planning and manage virtual training. He participates with the activities of the group. Congratulations. There's no danger for the camera with two handsome men like us. And a gift. Thank you. Great work.
OK, on va poursuivre avec Dave
Next, Dave Scott,
de Jeunesse musicale du Canada de Dieppe.
Youth
Orchestra of
Musical Center of Dieppe. He gives concerts in all of New Brunswick, and he's vice president of the board of directors since 2019 and responsible for communications on Facebook.
Faudra pas oublier d'en prendre une là aussi.
Don't forget to take a picture over there, too. Congratulations. Thank you for all your work.
OK, la quatrième bénévole.
Fourth volunteer, Paula Morin, Arts and Culture Center of Dieppe. She's president of the board of directors. And she loves art and culture since she's been very young. She participates in almost all activities at the Arts Center of Dieppe, and she always wants to help during the busy events. She's a professional for Equality for Youth, and she's very close to young people and participates with the Arts Center and Culture India. Thank you. Thank you. It's very much appreciated. The last person here tonight, Sylvie Kirkpatrick of the Ringettes of Dieppe Association. She's director and manager and trainer of the team. She's a member of the community of Ringettes, New Brunswick. That's a little gift for you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Obviously, the city of Dieppe moves a lot. When you see a lot of people implicated like this, that's the strength of our city. And we thank you very much for all the efforts that you put into it. Everybody benefits from it, and that's wonderful. They benefit from all the work that you do in your sectors and all the volunteers we have in Dieppe. We're so lucky to have them. Thank you again.
OK, on a 4 absents ce soir.
We have 4 people absent this evening. So the 6th person is Patrick Bourdenet, soccer club in Dieppe. He's a father of two children. He's a trainer and member of the board. He helps with the mini soccer program. And his vision and presence has been constant during the pandemic. Thank you. Seventh volunteer, Chantal de Grasse from the book club of Dieppe. She's a member of the board for the past 2 years, and she's on a programming committee, and she's helped for the book club. Eighth is Roland Richard Skiing Kodiak. He's been member of the board for a long time, and he furnishes the equipment of quality for his training with the youth. And last, Noël Cormier, the canoeing club, river runners canoe club that he created in the year 2000, and he gives donations to the club for the members. Thank you very much, Noël Cormier. And thank you, Jonathan. And thank you to the team of our leisure services for these wonderful presentations. I'm not going to repeat myself, but you know how it's important to us, the impact that you have on our community here in Dieppe is very much appreciated, and we encourage you to keep up the good work. You may stay if you wish to hear the presentation on the financial statements of the city of Dieppe. More excitement than that, I don't know what it would be. So you could stay, but we don't blame you if you decide to leave. Councillor Brideau wants to thank people. Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Congratulations to all these people from Dieppe that give their time for these activities, and congratulations. I need to mention that last week that many volunteers under the tutorship of Mr. Deroche, a lot of people were cleaning up the streets in Dieppe. There was great work. I met so many gangs a little bit everywhere. I didn't see everyone, but the work was so well done. So thank you to the people who are listening tonight through your computers. So congratulations, all of you. Thank you. Without further ado, we'll give you a little bit of space, space to leave if you want to. We won't be offended. I don't think Ms. Lees will be insulted either. Good luck with your finances. We have room. We've heard rumors that everything's going well. Good evening, Ms. Casey. Welcome. Good evening. I don't know why they left. It's so interesting, financial statements. I don't understand either. So tonight I'll present the results of the audit for the exercise terminated the 31st December 2021 for the city of Dieppe. Firstly, I confirm that we've done the audit according to the standards, accounting standards, are very important for the city. This financial statements were prepared conforming to the Canadian accounting standards for the public sector, there's a difference between the figures with the figures that are internal and the ones that the municipality uses, and we must make adjustments to bring them up to the standards of the public sector. So there's audited financial statements for the public sector, and the municipality is another. So we have no reserve, and these standards have been respected. When they'll be available, we'll have to revise them before the publishing of your annual report. The consolidated financial statements include all funds of the city of Dieppe, as well as Expansion Dieppe and Gestion 1604. That's all included in the financial statements. Here, I'll give you a summary of the main revenues for 2021. As each year, it's the imposition, the property taxes are the biggest for the city, 53 million, and sales for services, water and sewer, is 13 million in 2021, an increase since last year. Contributions for capital funds from other governments are $3 million compared to 8 million last year. And this was a deficit of 4 billion because of Uniplex, and others are different categories. 2021, it was 11 million, and 2029 million, so an increase of 1.9. For total revenues for 2021 for the public sector was 81.9 million compared to 82.8 last year, so a reduction of 980,000. With respect to expenses by category, the main expenses are transportation services. So here we have accounting for the public sector. In 2021, it was 14.6 million compared to 14.2 million last year. Protection services is another high category of 13.9 million in 2021 to 13.2 in 2020. With recreational and cultural services, the expenses in 2021 were 11 million compared to 9.7 in 2020, and other expenses for a total of 24.8 million compared to 23.5, so an increase of 1.2 for a total expense of 64 million in 2021 and 60.8 in 2020, so an increase of 3.6 million. And here we have the consolidated statements with the surplus in the public sector. 2021, the revenues less the expenses were 17.3 million in 2021. So a difference of 4.6 million. With accounting by funds, I'm just going to give you the surplus, as Stefan will give you more details. So accounting by funds shows a surplus of general administration fund, 589,000, and the sewer and water is 510,000 for a total of $1.1 million. For the consolidation of the results, with the biggest items that are adjusted, if you're going from fund accounting to the public sector, you'll see there's a difference of 17.4 million, and the adjustments are contributions in capital for developers in for the public sector, it's 5.2 million. Defenses of capital of the operations is 3.7 million, and reimbursement of long-term debt. This is for funds, it's an expense, but not for public sector. And transfers to reserves, it doesn't exist in public sector, so it's eliminated. This expense is excluded in financial statements, but it was 7.8 billion. For the public sector, for amortization of a capital, this is 12.8 million. We had it, that was added as an expense. And the surpluses of the year before last doesn't exist in the public sector, so they're removed for the public sector. With respect with reserve funds, these are the balances at December 30th, 2021. You'll see generally the reserves have increased after resolutions that were passed. It must come from resolution of council with operating funds general. At the end, the total is 22 million. In general capital, it was 15.9 million in 2021 compared to 10.5 in 2020, an increase of 5.3 million. And the operating reserve for sewer and water is 662,000 in 2021. And the capital reserve fund for water and sewer is 2.5 million compared to 3.1 million. The operating funds, there's just a certain amount that can be transferred, and you're respecting the criteria at the end of this year. With financial ratios here, I like to see this annually to see the progression. The first one, it's a financial ratio that represents interest and capital paid annually on the debt for a percentage of the total expenses on general operating fund. So if you see 2021, it was 13.53%. When you see the operating fund in general, this percentage is the principal payment and interest on the debt. The lower the ratio, it means that the funds that you have received from property tax is paid back to the debt. The lower the ratio, the better it is, but it's good to have debt as well to invest in growth. So the ratio was higher in 2013. There were more investments in infrastructure and more debt. And if you compare 2018, 19, 2021, you see a decrease of the ratio. So this percentage means that there are fewer expenses. With capital investments, you see the amount invested. For 2021, it was 10.8 million. And 2020, 2019 were big years as well with the Uniplex. And so it took a lot of that money. But in 2020, there was 29 million investment. For the balance of the debt, it's diminishing, and that's why the expenses is lower in 2021. So the balance of the debt was 68.9 million in 2021. Here's the comparison of the operating budget that can compare it with the imposition value. So with the total budget, operating budget, it was 59 million in 2021, an increase of 1.3. And these are $3.2 billion for the value that was taxed. So with the total budget, there was an increase of 4.9%. So there's a lot of good growth within the municipality. This ends my presentation. Are there any questions? Any questions from councillors? Councillor Goodboe, thank you, Your Worship. We're going to look at the statements later in detail. But if we have questions, do we ask them now or later? Yes, you can ask them now. I have a list. It's not long. I have a question. When you look at the financial statements, especially the notes that you give in your report for independent auditor, it's mentioned that you have a level of comfort with our internal control. If there was any danger, you would identify them. Can you explain what you look at? Is it generally or in detail, particularly with respect to fraud or something that's hard to see? So, what? How do you look at that? An audit has an objective not to detect fraud, but it's a part of the audit. And when we plan the audit, we must ensure that we have sufficient controls to give an opinion on the financial statements. We have to do some work. We have to look at the controls, separation of tasks in the cycles with water and sewer, rather all financial aspects. And then we look at all the steps of approval. We want to have some knowledge that there have been sufficient controls. And then we do some testing on the audit standards. We have to evaluate the risk by cycle, and depending on that risk, we'll have more or fewer procedures. So it's a sampling based on the risks. So we audit an amount that's not material, but if there was an error in $10,000, the reader wouldn't be led astray, but it's still important. There are some steps that we take to ensure that if there's fraud, that will be found. Yes, I have a second question. I'm curious. You talked, or we talked around the table about our assets and the work that people do for us and the politics, the policies that we have. Does that go into public accounting or is that separate? That would be separate. When you talk about assets, there's a software that you use for that, but we're only focused on the financial. I don't think we go into too much details on that other side. I think this is my last question. In your note number 7 with our benefits, we have sick leave and that sort of thing. Do you look to see if there changes or what can it be represented as percentages. I didn't see any comments if it's increased or not. I see the amount, but I don't have a reference to know whether it's higher or lower. The sick leaves are evaluated by an external actuary, and we do it internally to make sure that the figures are precise. But with the financial statements, we have a policy where we can divulge that thing, or that kind of thing. The financial statements are very long. There was a lot of them. I wanted to make sure that I read the budget well. With respect to grants, did we surpass in 2021 our grants by a percentage of 20 to 25%? I think it's on page 25 of financial statements. And the grants, I see amounts here, about $100,000 difference. Note 20. I'm trying to compare the reality and the budget. Sometimes I look at the notes to compare. Yes, with grants, yes, the reality was higher than what was budgeted. We saw other places where it's $100,000 less as well. I just wanted to mention that. I think that was about it. I think we can find it. I don't have the details in front of me right now, but I can tell you, like, we can find which grants were higher. Yes, that was all my questions. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood the financial statements. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Thank you for your presentation. And we'll have a resolution later. Thank you. Mr. Theriault, it's your turn. You're lucky we're still not finished. And for the question on the grants, it was passed at the end of the year of about $100,000 for a grant for a medical grant for studies. Thank you. Good evening, councillors, colleagues, and members of the public who are listening to us tonight. To make a parallel with what was presented by Ms. Casey, I want to give you a little bit more meat. This is a work tool, and this is accounting by funds. We went from 17 million to 1 million. So I'm going to present tonight on this $1 million. We have a loan of 600,000 in the general fund and 511,000 for water and sewer. So I'm going to focus on this tonight and give you more details. I'll give you the context first. When we start a budget deliberations for the next year at the end of September or October, the figures for the budgets or for the next year, the thing is what you want to finish this year. what are your provisions so that I can make a decision and afterwards you can make the transfers to reserves in consequence, or take them out if you wish. So this is in a time frame where we have to make all these decisions. At that time, my first line, the two columns, the first is the general operating fund, and the second one is for water and sewer. At the end of December, I asked the director for this information. We compile it, and we thought we would have a surplus of $4 million for the first, and half a billion for water and sewer. So with a surplus of 4 million in December that we expected, we suggested to transfer to reserves $3.7 million and keep maybe $300,000 aside in case we would plan for something that could happen and we don't know, to make sure we would have money. And for water and sewer, we budgeted 400,000, so it gave us a surplus. So this 3.7 and 400,000, we follow the financial plan. It goes into the reserves of general operating fund and for water and sewer to maximize these two reserves. And afterwards, the balance will go in the capital reserve. And this year there was a large amount that we went there and we used for capital works of 2022. So it gave us an option to have money available without having to borrow more. Next is what happened between October and December. The real figures arrived as we make comparisons with these figures. So we have $250,000 more in the general operating fund and 410,000 for water and sewer. So we end up with 590,000 and 511,000. So for the 4 million and in general operating fund. So for this 4 million, it starts with a big number, $1.6 million. There are revenues that we did not expect that the province gave us. It was a surprise everywhere in the province to all the municipalities at a pro rata of the population. They received money from the federal government and distributed it to the municipalities. And we received 1.4 million more. So we took that and put it in a capital reserve fund. That was part of 2.7 million. And then we had a cancellation of the P gap. That's the value of residences. So you can see a house valued at 400,000. And for some reasons, there was a 5,000 reduced on taxed on 300,000 rather than 350,000, or 500. 305,000 was taxed according to the value of the property. So by canceling this gap, it gave us about $250,000 more in our coffers. So it was a surplus. The second figure, 1.2 million for salaries. There are 3 or 4 reasons here. Firstly, we had new positions in 2021 that was accepted for the budget. And those positions, it didn't start January 1st, but they started a little bit later during the year. So that created a surplus. Secondly, the people go on sick leave sometimes, certainly on the short term, and it's not the city responsible for their salaries, but it's the insurance company. So that created a surplus. Thirdly, we have vacant positions, people that leave during the year and before we can hire a new person for that position. And we had a few of them, so we had surplus there as well. So that's why we have a surplus in salaries for 1.2 billion. With the $300,000 of revenues for construction permits, it's difficult to see how much revenues we will receive. So we're a bit prudent on that side. We budget 350,000, but uh, we received $700,000, and then the aquatic center, because of COVID, we had budgeted a normal year, but we didn't have as many members, so we had deficit there. And we had 300,000 for Kodiak Transpo as well. There are two reasons. We had a 2021 budget accepted, and they came back with another budget. And their budget was inferior, so it created a surplus. Secondly, with the programs for on request transportation, it helped us to save money there as well. 300,000 for canceled events, those like August 15th or other big events that did not take place. So we had savings there. And other operational surplus, there were quite a few of them because of canceled events, and there's less promotion and publicity. And as well, snow removal cost 150,000 less, and expenses as well. Your expenses because you haven't gone anywhere, so it was a lot less than what was budgeted. And there was COVID, and we had to hire people in the arenas to ensure that people wore masks and to take notes and make sure everybody was vaccinated. That was $100,000 more. So we had about $500,000 surplus with respect to that. So we had an estimated surplus of 4 million. We paid two debts this year. We had a renewal of a loan, and we paid it. And there was a part of it that belonged to expansion Dieppe, and they reimbursed us. So we were up to about 125,000. And we had a ticket for a lot that was sold, Champlain du Marché, and with the owners, we had an agreement to pay 5 years, and finally we sold it, so they had to pay the whole thing, and then we got rid of this order ticket. So that was the 4 million surplus estimated with respect to the operating budget. Like I said a while ago, the next surplus of 250,000 is the difference between the estimation and what we really ended the year with. There are a lot of small amounts. I don't want to give you a whole lot of detail. For example, $55,000 surplus for electricity. We received the bill in November for the arenas. And finally, the arenas, Energy and B Power thought that was too high for November, so they gave us a credit for December. So those are little tiny details with these programs. We've had some activities that didn't take place, some of them were replaced, and then they didn't take place. So we had a surplus of $30,000. Then we had repairs, renovations that were less than anticipated. Gas was less as well because there was less snow removal. So those are the events that brought us $50,000 more. With respect to water and sewer, we had estimated a surplus of 480,000. For the first, the salaries of $200,000, that's the portion water and sewer for salaries generally. And there's always a small portion for water and sewers. And to buy water, we used less water. We thought we would have 2% of usage to buy from the city of Moncton, but we had a reduction of 5% of the figure that I had foreseen. With respect to water and sewer users, the units, the residential houses here in Dieppe, I expected 8,800 units, but we had 8,900, so it was more. So we created 100,000 there. And the last 100,000 was the management of forests. It was silviculture and the lots that we have, cutting of trees to create access. We sell those trees and we gained $100,000. So we had foreseen for water and sewer, and we transferred into reserve. Then we have the difference between what we had foreseen and reality. For the water counters, there we have the residents, and for the water meters, we had 30,000 cubic meters water sold more than we thought. So the operation, capital operation is for 130,000. It's like a Book Street and Melanson, those projects ended late in the year. We want our forecast in September, October, but they were a bit off. So we saved 130,000. $100,000 for operation expensive for public works, engineering, tests for water, and that type of activity. 40,000 other revenues, 20,000 salary, to buy water, 20,000. So it gives you an idea of how we get to a surplus. So this is the same slide I presented at the beginning, and this is a summary of how we got to $590,000 and 511,000 surplus. Thank you. Any questions from councillors? Thank you to both of you. Now, quickly, we have no questions from the public. So we're going to the adoption of minutes for the meeting of April 11th, moved by Councilor Thibodeau, seconded by Councilor Brideau. For the question, no questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. The minutes of April 11th are approved as presented. Now for motions, memorandums, and nominations, 10.1, community development, Mr. Melanson. Thank you, Your Worship. This is to adopt the tariff for event stands. It's already a good sign, so we're planning events for 2022. So we're going to invest in the community this year. So this, we have 4 categories to sell food and for crafts and promotional articles. And we're going to invite vendors for the events at the park, Rotary Park. It's at Sim and on place 1604. When this will be adopted, we will send out the invitations to get proposals from vendors. I propose to adopt it as presented. Thank you for the reading of the resolution. Councilor Boudreau. Thank you, Your Worship. The council accept the pricing table attached to the memorandum dated April 12, 2022, concerning stands at events organized by the municipality in 2022. I so move. Moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. For the question, Councillor Godbout, thank you. I'm in favor of this resolution, but I wonder in future years if you looked at the possibility of using differential tariffs to encourage other vendors, for food vendors that would be more healthy. So, and different choices for families if people come with their children. So, differential tariffs to encourage certain merchants. It would be a way to satisfy policies and encourage behaviors that we want to see. It's noted. Thank you. Other question or comment? All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Resolution carried as presented. Now, at 10.2, finances to adopt the 2021 financial statements. For the reading of the resolution, Councilor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. The council adopt the audited financial statements of the city of Dieppe for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, as presented by the firm Ernst & Young. I so move, Your Worship. Moved by Councilor Thibodeau, seconded by Councilor Lantang. On the question, Councilor Kanu. Just for clarification, the financial statements that presented is a draft, so they'll be revised, and perhaps there will be errors corrected. So do we have to say that it's a draft here? I see it as a draft. I just want to clarify that we're not adopting the ones that are here, but the ones that will be revised and where the corrections will be made. Yes, Councillor Godbout. We realized that we forgot her name at the second page, so it'll be corrected in the final version. So perhaps you could add in this motion revise. Unless you can assure me that this will be corrected. Yes, we trust each other. I know sometimes it's difficult. I just thought we could add draft. No other questions? All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Resolution adopted as presented. For municipal bylaws, that finishes the subjects for tonight. Yes, there aren't any. So, notices of motion, there are none. Now, inquiries and announcements by members of council. So, I think we'll start on the other side. I don't want any fights over this, but Mr. Gannett, go ahead. A citizen asked me on the corner of Amiro and Fox Creek Road, the when they cross the Fox Creek sign, could there be a sign? Like there would be a crosswalk there? I know you're not going to do anything there for a couple of years. I don't want a light, but like you put on Melanson Road, you just put a sign there that there was a crosswalk. Thank you, Your Worship. The crosswalk is already painted. That's the end of Fox Creek Road when you come to Amil. Yes, it's painted, but it should be done again because people that come from East Amilo often they turn on Fox Creek Road, and there's a lot of people crossing to go to the park and the trails. Perhaps it would slow down the speed because if you see a sign for a crosswalk, you put it there for the dwell house here there. Perhaps put one on the other way.
Piéton, c'est quand c'est comme mi-bloc. Quand c'est au bout d'une rue comme ça, les gens ont déjà un arrêt à faire au bout du Fox Creek. Donc, il n'y a aucun endroit qu'on a des enseignes pour piétons. Il faudrait juste vérifier que ça rencontre les normes là, de l'Association de transport du Canada. Je ne pense pas que ça les rencontre, mais on va vérifier.
OK, merci.
Merci, c'est tout.
C'est tout pour moi.
Madame Boudreau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. J'aimerais remercier tous les bénévoles qui contribuent à la communauté, puis ceux qui ont été soulignés ce soir. Comme conseiller Brideau, j'aimerais aussi remercier les bénévoles qui ont participé au nettoyage dans le cadre du Jour de la Terre. J'ai participé moi aussi. Puis, ce que j'ai remarqué, c'est autour des commerces, puis des développements. Il y a des grosses poubelles pour ramasser les déchets, mais on voit aussi surtout beaucoup de déchets qui sont à l'extérieur de la poubelle. Est-ce qu'il y aurait moyen de sensibiliser les commerces à nettoyer périodiquement parce que ces déchets-là, ils s'en vont dans le vent, ils finissent sur d'autres terrains de la ville, puis inévitablement dans l'eau, des endroits dans la nature qui ne devraient pas avoir de déchets. Est-ce qu'il y aurait, je ne sais pas, le secteur de communication qui pourrait travailler là-dessus?
On en prend note, puis on va voir ce qu'on peut faire.
Oui, merci. C'est tout.
C'est tout. Monsieur Brideau.
Merci, M. le maire. Ben, c'est tout pour ce soir. Je n'ai rien à rajouter.
Merci. Je vais vous prendre votre parole et fermer votre micro immédiatement. Monsieur Thibodeau.
Merci, M. le maire. Moi non plus, j'ai rien pour ce soir.
Micro fermé. Madame Turgeon-Roy.
Moi non plus, j'ai rien pour ce soir. Bonne semaine.
Ça fait trois prises. Alors, Madame Godbout.
Merci. Merci spécial aux vérificateurs pour leur excellent travail et présentation ce soir. C'était vraiment clair. Merci, Madame Casey, comme toujours. Et puis, merci aux employés pour leur collaboration avec ce travail. Les résultats sont excellents, comme on s'en attendait aussi. Mais il ne faut pas oublier l'effort que ça peut représenter dans le travail de nos employés, des vérificateurs et de leur collaboration pendant la période de vérification. Alors, un gros merci à Stéphane, à toi et ton équipe. Je sais que c'est un travail qui est quand même ardu parfois, mais ça nous apporte les informations qu'on a besoin pour ensuite te renfiler après ça les autres informations et ton équipe. Alors, merci beaucoup à la fois les employés et aux vérificateurs. J'apprécie bien l'information. Et aussi, un gros merci aux bénévolat. Et puis, c'est tout pour ce soir. Merci.
Merci, M. Lantaigne.
Merci, M. le maire. Rien d'autre à ajouter, sauf que, effectivement, en cette semaine de l'action bénévole, moi aussi, j'aimerais de souligner et de remercier infiniment tous les gens, les bénévoles qui s'impliquent dans notre communauté. On sait que sans nos bénévoles, les gens qui donnent gracieusement de leur temps, on n'aurait pas nécessairement la qualité de vie qu'on a là. Puis il y a bien des choses, des activités, des événements que notre population ne pourrait contribuer. Donc voilà, merci à tous nos bénévoles, puis merci à tout le monde et bonne soirée.
Merci bien. Merci juste pour remercier l'inspecteur Jolette, puis de nous amener ces jeunes gendarmes-là. Je pense que ça va être quand même intéressant de rencontrer ces nouveaux gendarmes dans un milieu un peu plus accueillant. On ne souhaite pas les rencontrer sur le chemin. Ceci étant dit, bonne fin de soirée à tous.